Hey guys, it's here bringing you another video, and welcome back to another episode of League Discussion. The series I take a topic, rip it apart, my own opinions and experiences, and encourage you guys to join in. And today we're going to be doing it in partnership with QT. So basically, if you go in the description, there'll be a link to a QT, and you can leave all your discussion down there. The incentive to do so is that we're going to be giving away $25 worth of Riot points. Whether there's just an amazing reply, that person may get all $25, or if there's like a couple really good ones, we'll spread it out. But we've got $25 worth of Riot points to give out. Obviously, also we have the massive giveaway that we're doing that isn't related to QT on a separate thing. But yeah, join in the discussion down below there. I'll be replying to people when this video goes live. The first half an hour to an hour, I'll be on the QT replying to people, kind of sparking up conversation, and that's also when the most likely you'll probably get noticed by me. But I will be checking after a couple days of this going out. So if you watch this a couple days late, don't think you can't win some right points, because you still can. But the discussion we'll be covering today is about the whole top lane thing. So it's been kind of dividing. I'm not even going to say it's not a 50-50 split. It's probably a very small group of people, but with very large voices, kind of making a big thing about top lane, etc., etc. So I'll be breaking it down into where I kind of see it from, and there will be a main point that I will say may get repetitive, that a lot of the points that I can use to counter a certain person's argument, which I will be mentioning, all kind of go back to one big key thing, which I'll be mentioning, but I just thought I'd warn you in advance. Also, just say there isn't footage, lol footage. Basically, unfortunately, as you guys know, something bad happened recently, and all footage that I've got has to be going for videos right now, gameplay videos, because I'm actually going away 3 days next week, and most of you could probably guess why that is. So yeah, I need just videos, and I need the content for those, not a league discussion, unfortunately. But let's get into it. So top lane, I thought I'd start by saying two things. Basically a summary of what's happened, because some people will have no idea what I'm talking about, and then why do I think I can potentially talk about it. Not only, we'll start with that one. Why do I think I can talk about it? Well, firstly, a lot of people have asked me to talk about it. I am somebody that just jumps into when game balance and stuff like that, and I always have. I don't shy away from it. I like to think of myself as a fairly analytical person when it comes to game balance design, with also my background in actual game design. I'm not just a player of League, I understand game design. That's what I did in university, getting the highest grade possible. I know game design fairly well, and I'm not an emotionally intensive person. I don't get emotionally invested in champions that could skew and make me biased to anything in League of Legends. If something's changing, I'll weigh up both sides and then make a rational point. And I think that is also what has unfortunately led to this being a problem for a lot of people. So what has happened? So basically, top lane's never been an amazingly popular role unless it's overpowered. If it's overpowered, then yeah, its popularity goes up like any role in League of Legends, but it hasn't been what I would consider an overpowered role for quite a long time, maybe over a year. But when I say overpowered, it's been overpowered in a tank sense in the past, and even the recent past, top laners were dominating games playing tanks. Where the problem lies is the certain playstyle of split pushing to win, 1v1ing to win, that playstyle has basically been fading away. Why has it been fading away? Well, game design, not just balance, but game design is moving away from 1v1 orientated League of Legends. It was that in Season 1, 2, and a little bit of 3, but it's moving away from that and is now, LoL is a lot more team orientated. Team focused, work together, win the game. Where there are some people that unfortunately are living into the past that still want that to be the best way to play. So you have a group of people who, admittedly, a lot of them are one-tricks, who are basically very vocal about, we want our old way to play back, top lane's pathetic right now, buff our champions or do something about it. That's the basics of what's happened. A guy called Shinshin, he is pretty much a Jax one-trick. He can play other champions. He has shown he can play other champions. But if Jax is available, he's free to play. He's playing Jax. He has played other things to master and challenger level in the past. But from what I can tell, the past year or so, he's just Jax. And he basically... again, this isn't an attack on him personally. Like, there may be some stuff going on in his head that is different to the rest of us. But basically, he sees League, or especially top lane, as the manly lane of League of Legends, which is a really weird way to put it, but that's the way that he put it. And his way of playing manly is 1v1ing people, split pushing, not really grouping, and just trying to win the game that way. And that is the number one problem of why this has happened. All the people that are kind of coming out the woodwork and going, it's a problem, it's a problem. If you actually break down who they are, a lot of them are the bruiser one-tricks. So Wicked, who I highly respect, he pretty much self-admittedly now is an Aurelia one-trick. And there's a couple of people like this who are coming out the woodwork who are playing these 1v1 orientated champions, who basically just don't like the game direction. It's not just top lane, but it's the game direction. But what they've misinterpreted it as is that they think it's just a top lane problem. And I can tell you right now, it's not. It's not just a top lane problem. It's a League of Legends problem. Right now, and I will be quoting Beyond the Rift here quite a lot. So it's PewDiePie and Skara's show that they invite a guest on every week. They invited Hishinshin on, and it was an okay episode, but it was basically 2 hours of Skara and PewDiePie not really taking him seriously. Because some of the points, what I will say, just as a note about Hishinshin, he makes some good points. I'm not going to disregard every single point he makes, because that would be daft. He does make some good points, but the way that he puts them forward, and some of just the more ridiculous points, kind of make him not the person they should be using to be the face of let's balance top lane. I would probably say Wicked would probably be a better person to have, because what I can tell is Wicked isn't as emotionally invested into his one champion. Wicked used to be a pro, so for me holds a little bit more ground to an average solo queue player. And I think he'd be a little bit more willing to accept other arguments other than top lane is weak, end of. So that's just first thing. And again, remember, in the QT, leave all your opinions. People who leave really good answers will be getting rare points. So, the problems with top lane of what some people are saying is, you know, it's that playstyle is moving away. The top lane item build is very expensive. AD carries item build is cheap, so they punish people more. Junglers have more spare time, and a lot of the time they go to top lane. So just basic stuff like that. There are other points. Obviously, I can't cover everything. I do these live unscripted because that's the way I prefer to do things. But basically, I agree with some of them. First one I agree with is jungling is a lot easier than it's basically ever been. In fact, it's quicker to clear. Well, it may not, like, if you had a stopwatch and it's like, oh no, Season 4, Patch 3, it was quicker to clear. It's quick to clear right now with also maintaining a high amount of health, which basically means a jungler can stay on par, if not get ahead in XP of laners, as well as have basically full health coming out of the jungle, and then having a whole minute or so to gank before the jungle camps respawn. This leads to a problem, especially for top lane, and I do agree especially for top lane, because it is a very easy lane to gank. Why is it an easy lane to gank? Well, if you break down every single lane of top lane in League, bot lane is hard to gank usually, even though it's the same design as top lane, but because there are two people to gank against. That means they have double the amount of spells to counter you, that has double the amount of spells to escape, double the amount of spells just to stop you in your tracks. Sometimes it's hard, and sometimes it's not worth going bot lane. Mid lane is also hard to gank because it's a relatively short lane. Unless they are right up at the enemy's tower, or you have double CC as a jungler and a mid laner, a lot of the time it's not worth ganking mid. So top lane is a long lane with only one person, so it's a lot easier to go for. And if a jungler has a minute or so of downtime when they're leaving the jungle after doing a full clear, and they're still full health, and if they're not, they can go get one of those gimmicky plants to get their health back up, or attack the scuttle crab to get their health back up, then they can go top lane as much as they want for a minute or two, which is a little bit annoying. So the first thing I will say, I'm doing all the things that I agree with. I think it's a relatively healthy thing to do, to show people I am not just like a biased against the Shinshin. I don't think he should be the face of, top lane, because I will mention something later on. But I'm going through the points that I agree with. And the big one I do agree with is jungling. The second one I partially agree with is the top lane item build is relatively expensive. But the problem with this, it does depend you as a person, how willing you are to adapt. Now, his Shinshin's point was his first three items cost around 3,000 gold each, some of them a bit more. Triforce is like 3,500, whatever it is. His first three items contain no resistance, and with the current meta, It's very meta for an AD carry to win their lane, kill the tower, then transition to top lane, and then the AD carry is against the top laner. And his point was his first 3 items don't have any resistances, therefore he's going to be eventually laning against the AD carry that's just going to be basically killing him easy. But again, this is unwillingness to adapt. This is him wanting the best 3 Jax items in the early game for damage output, but not necessarily for the game he's currently in. And that's where the lack of adaptation is clearly apparent. You know, if that's happening every single game, maybe, okay, I've got to sacrifice one of the amazing items early game to get the armor item, and therefore I can survive, and therefore that problem goes down. But there's just unwillingness to do that. As I've said to everybody in the past, and most people get the point, is there is no such thing as the best build in League of Legends. The best build in League of Legends is the game you're currently in, the best build adapted for that current game. That's how you should play League of Legends, and that is it. And sure, you can bring out a calculator and work out what the best and most optimum path will be, mathematically. But if there's a 5-0 AD carry on the enemy team and you have no resistances in the first 3 items, then that just goes out the window. So that is just my first point, is I agree partially that a lot of the items are expensive for top laners, but adapting your item build will help this point. More importantly is the meta. The meta is kind of boring in certain aspects. There's a very wide range of champions throughout the game right now, but PewDiePie laughed when Hashinshin said there's very lack of choice in top lane, because PewDiePie basically just shut that down instantly, going, there's only 3 AD carries on average that you can play viably in Challenger where the game is at its peak. He goes, so don't talk to me about having diversity in top lane when there's probably less diversity in bot lane all the time, which is 100% true. If you look at every patch of League of Legends, there's only really a trifecta of AD carries, and usually it's a trifecta because they counter each other. It's like, oh, you can play Caitlyn, but if that person picks Caitlyn, you'll pick Varus, and it's usually a triangle that you basically pick into whoever, and that leads into my next point of counter picks. So he brung up counter picks, and then Skara started laughing because it kind of sounded like his Shinshin only thought counter picking was a thing in top lane. And I can tell you right now, as somebody that's played every role in the game for a lot, it exists in every single lane. So yeah, Skara had a kind of a funny face and a bit of a laugh about that one. And I will say, yes, it does feel bad if you're top lane. And if you have to blind pick, because yes, you can get countered. But that exists in every single lane, but more importantly, that's existed in top lane since Season 1. Counter picking in top lane has always been relatively harsh because there is a massive spectrum of champions in top lane. Arguably the broadest spectrum of champions in top lane, more than any other role. And it's on to you, if you're blind picking a champion that you know is heavily countered or can be countered, that's on you. That's not on League, because that's just how League works. Counters have to exist. They're healthy for a game. So that was a really weird point. You know, if I was on Beyond the Rift and he mentioned, you know, how can I blind pick Jax? My point would be, don't blind pick Jax. If you are going to blind pick him, you can't complain about it because you're then picking a champion that you know can get counterpicked. Why don't you pick Gnar or Maokai or something if you're blind picking that is less susceptible to getting countered? And that also leads point, and this is why I say there was a repetitive point, is the unwillingness to adapt. Is that, no, I'm only Jax, I'm only building those 3 items. It keeps coming back. It's the recurring thing that keeps coming back with Hashinshin. And that is, again, why I don't think he should be the face of this argument. He makes good points, but him himself doesn't help the situation. Next point, if we go into the broader spectrum of the point I've been making, is, without offending anybody, Riot don't balance a game to one tricks. They never will. They shouldn't. It's unhealthy to do so. Riot don't want people just to play one champion when they've got a range of 140 cool champions that they want you to play. They don't want one guy just being on that and then one guy on that, because that's boring. They don't want one person to be playing the same champions for 5 years. They want you to be changing, adapting, and that's the problem also with one tricks. You can't balance to them, and you can't really take them that seriously because their personal bias is incredibly strong. If they're only playing that one thing, obviously they're going to want that to be strong. And I think what sums it up perfectly is Hashinshin himself, nearing the end of Beyond the Rift, basically said, if top lane was okay, pretty much, admittedly, if Jax was okay, you wouldn't hear from me. I'd be quiet. I would stop making videos. He literally said those words. And that kind of sums it up. So if Jax is fine and I'm not complaining about top lane, I'll be quiet. But what happens if like you buff up Jax and everything that Hinshin plays gets buffed? And then what happens to the other people's playstyle that gets nerfed? Will they now start making videos? Will they start complaining? And will you be okay with that? Probably not. Because a lot of people are just personal biased to what they do and don't think about the broader spectrum. And yes, there are some things in top lane that does need to be updated or changed. But again, like I said earlier, I don't think it's a top lane thing. I think it's a League of Legends thing. The whole thing about an AD carry killing bot lane tower, then going top lane killing top lane tower, then going mid lane killing mid lane tower, and then the AD carry has 2 items in like 15 minutes. That's more of a problem than what happens in top lane right now. And also, League of Legends is going to be constantly changing. The time of the 1v1s, you know, back in the day, Jax and Renekton and Shyvana dueling it out in top lane, that was awesome. But that will eventually come back. That's how video games work. That's how League of Legends has always done it. Champions go and, you know, come back. Just look at the LCS. Some patches, there are people playing Gangplank like they are now. In a couple months, they're probably just going to be playing tanks. It's a wave of adaptation that everybody has to kind of get on board with. And if you don't get on board with it, you've got to accept the consequences. It's pretty much that simple. And like what I would have loved Cutie Pie and Scara to say is basically just say, you know, if you are a one-trick, can't you see that point? And it would be interesting to see what he said, because they didn't really answer it. It's like, okay, on one-tricks, you love your champion, you're very passionate about that champion, but can't you see the game has to adapt more than just that one champion? And it would be interesting just to see how he responded, because if it was like, no, the game should be balanced around Jax, then you obviously know the personal bias is way too strong. It would be interesting to see. And just to make the other point about counterpicking that I forgot to mention, is he was constantly on about Jace. Jace was his kryptonite, apparently, that he was like, you know, how can I pick Jax when Jace is open? Because there's in no situation I can ever beat Jace. And admittedly, it's not an easy matchup, because if you play it wrong and you jump on the Jace when he's still got cannon form, hammer form E up, he can just batter you away. But what was very interesting to me, and the whole Twitch chat with about 25,000 people kind of copped onto the same thing, is when they were doing a Discord AMA, there was one question that brung in a guy called Khan, I think his name is, who is a challenger Korean top laner. I don't know if he plays in like LCK, but he is a very, very, very well-known top laner in Korea. One of the best. Every top laner that is anybody respects this player. And he plays Jax. He plays all the meta top laners. Recently he came out, and I'm not sure if it was in regards to this whole controversy, but recently apparently he came out with a statement. If you're Jax and you can't beat Jace, then you're simply bad at Jax. You just simply don't know what you're doing, basically. And Scara asked him that question, what do you think of that? That's Khan, you know who he is, everybody respects him, he's one of the best top laners in Korea, which is arguably the best server. What do you think? He didn't answer the question. He answered as something, but it was a bit weird. It was nothing to do with what Scara said. It went on a completely different path. And then he was like, wait, what was the question? And it was like, he just kind of disregarded it completely. With basically, he was countering himself to the question. And I think part of the reason for that, in his mind, he is so in it of, I'm an amazing Jax. I should be able to kill everything. It doesn't make sense if I can't. That's his mentality, but when a better player comes along and goes, well, you're just bad, he can't see that. And by the way, I'm not calling Hinshin a bad player. In relation to me, he's really good, obviously. He's better than me. I'm open to admit that any day of the week. But when it comes to Khan, who's a god tier player, if you want to call it, he's like Super Saiyan, God Super Saiyan, he doesn't know how to react to that, Hinshin. He's like, wait, what? That can't be a possible thing. I'm the bad one, what? So that was also really interesting to see, because it kind of, in my mind, of like, you know, I'm not a psychiatrist or anything, but it was kind of like going, he has just crazy personal bias thinking he is just amazing at the game. And then somebody else recently on Twitch told me, he came out with a statement recently saying he was 2-7. He was 2 kills, 7 deaths. He thought he should be able to kill a 3-3 Fiora, and then he raged when he couldn't kill her. That's a problem. Like, again, he thinks Jax is just should be able to kill everything, which again leads to the problem of lack of adapting, but the personal bias towards wanting Jax to be strong is simply too high. So yes, I do think there should be some stuff that needs to be updated in top lane, but not to benefit Jax, not to benefit one single champion in the game, to benefit the game health, to benefit the role, to benefit League of Legends. And I think that's where the problem is of having a one-trick as the face of this whole thing. So that's pretty much most of my arguments. I did kind of just remember while I was talking, I didn't say why I felt like I could talk about this subject. So for those that are still around, I guess I can say now. So one, yes, a lot of people were asking me to do this anyway. But more importantly, I have played top lane throughout the years, but I'm a very old League of Legends player. I've played since Season 1. I've been through changes. I've been through metas. I've adapted every single time. So you've got somebody that adapts versus somebody that doesn't adapt. And obviously, yes, he's better than me. He puts a lot more time into the game than I do. But more importantly, most of my competitive history has been in top lane. So as most of you know, I used to play in tournaments, win tournaments, won the UK Battlegrounds tournament, which is the best UK team, beat a team that went to Worlds. That's actually a video on this channel somewhere. And I played top lane. Maybe not in the Battlegrounds tournament, I might play jungle, but a lot of my tournament experience is in top lane. So it's not just I have solo queue on the line here, I also have tournament experience on the line here. And I can tell you right now, if ever there was a one trick in tournament experience, you used to laugh because they weren't a thing in tournaments. In new Clash mode, one tricks won't be a thing. The game isn't balanced towards one tricks. They are not the pinnacle of League of Legends. The team play aspect is. And yes, I would love there to be a bit more 1v1ing in League of Legends, but right now there isn't. So you adapt, you change, you do something different until that will eventually come back around. And that, to me, is the main problem, is the lack of adapting. The personal bias is too strong. So what I would actually say, what would be healthy for this conversation, is I would love... and again, I'm not the person with all the answers here. I'm not going to pretend I am. I'm not. I don't play top lane that much anymore. I can just tell you from a game design point of view, this is kind of funny. But what I would love is Beyond the Rift, I think, is a great show for actually hearing some very good players talk about the problems of League. Get a top laner on Beyond the Rift, you know, Scar and PewDiePie, get a very well-known top laner who isn't a one-trick and get their opinions on it. What do they think? If they're, you know, somebody who isn't one-trick isn't going to have that personal bias attached to them, who changes their champion pool, who plays different champions, what do they think? Recently, there has been a couple coming out the woodwork and saying some things. You had the Echo Fox Academy top laner saying that top lane's fine. So it would be interesting to get another variant on the whole argument, the other side to it. Obviously, I'm a little bit on the other side, but having somebody who is basically the same level as Hishinshin, who's a challenger master player, who isn't a one-trick, I think that would be very interesting, because then you can basically compare the different two. And yes, as I said, I've said throughout, there are problems with top lane. I'm not pretending there isn't, but the whole play style of, I have to 1v1 people, I should be able to 1v1 people, I have to kill people, to me... Sure, it could be fun, but just adapt when the playstyle isn't that way. Play something different, play something better. And if you're not willing to do that, then accept the consequences. To me, it's that simple. You know, every role in the game does it. Like, you know, PewDiePie was saying, like, he does it every single patch that he only plays like 3 odd AD carries, which is boring, but he does it because that's how the game works. And if he doesn't want to play that, PewDiePie 100% will accept there are consequences of him not playing one of the strongest things in the game right now. And that's most people in League. So yeah, I thought I'd just add to the conversation. Again, I always do these unscripted, so I may have missed a couple things, but that's the beauty of having the cutie. That rhymed. In the description down below, again, go leave a comment. If I did miss something, then write about it, and I can talk back. I can counter you down there or add to the discussion, and that's kind of the cool thing too. So if you guys did enjoy, throw a like on it. Obviously, you can use the YouTube comment section if you're not interested in the riot points, but I will more be replying to people on the QT than the YouTube comment section. I still will look at the YouTube comment section, but yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed though. If you did, throw a like on the video. If you got any more discussions you want me to talk about, throw them down below, because I never hide away from this type of thing. I love debates. I used to be on a debate team, but I love debates. I love talking, and yeah, it's always fun. It's always cool to see different opinions coming out the woodwork. And I will say, obviously, some people will pull the rating card here of, oh yeah, these are higher rating players, they know what they're talking about, which is true. You know, the higher rating you go, the more likely you'll know about what is healthy for the game of League of Legends, if you're not a one-trick. Because again, personal bias, I've said it a couple times in this video. But even if you're a silver top laner, if you're a gold top laner, you can still have opinions, and that is still very healthy for the game. As I said, League of Legends doesn't balance the game to one-tricks, they balance the game to the health of the game. And even though they probably balance the game to more high-rating players, they still have to take low-rating people into, obviously, consideration, because there are more low-rating players than high-rating players, so it just kind of makes sense. Anyway, like, subscribe, see you guys next time.